Hey, we're at the top of the hour, so why don't we get going here? So, everyone, welcome to What Keeps You Up at Night, Entrepreneurship During Challenging Times. I am your co-host, Colin Weston, who is the community leader for Startup Vancouver, which is one of over 40 community chapters across the country with Startup Canada. And today we got a special edition, and this is celebrating Calgary entrepreneurs. So I've connected with, who I consider a friend now, with Kevin Dahl, who is with Platform Calgary. And we decided, you know what, this show is really about a national reach here. And we've celebrated Surrey entrepreneurs here in Vancouver, and we've also done them in Ontario. And Calgary is such a vibrant innovation ecosystem. I've spent some time there over the last couple of years there through Startup Calgary, our affiliate chapter there, and just love what they're doing. So Kevin and I started bouncing this around in September. It's like, you know what, you have so many awesome entrepreneurs, so many diverse entrepreneurs in Calgary, in Alberta. So here we are today on the show, Calgary edition. So with that, I'm going to quickly share my screen here. Reza, last week was not one of my best efforts here, my friend. So hopefully I can do a little bit
focus, Colin.
better here.
Focus on the task.
There we go. Reza, can you see
wow,
that, my friend?
You got it.
Now,
Nailed
last
it.
week, Reza, after I clicked on the second one, I went through the whole thing. I was stuck in the first slide. So don't be shy. If I'm stuck in the first slide, let me know so I can overcome my own technical incompetence. But we'll start with the first slide, and that is welcoming all of our guests today. So today we have Carrie, who is the co-founder and CEO of PwrSwitch. And we also have Derrick, who is the founder and CEO of Ontopical. And then Shanika, Abeysinghe, who is the co-founder of Bessie Box. So I will be speaking with Carrie to start the show. Unfortunately, our good friend and co-host Maryam Mobini is a little under the weather today, so Maryam won't be joining us. So Maryam, get well soon. We'll see you again next week. And then our special guest co-host Kevin Dahl, representing Platform Calgary, is going to jump and have a conversation with Derrick. And then to backstop the show here, Reza V is going to have a conversation with Shanika to get us going here. So with that, Reza, do I have a kitten on screen, or is it
You got it.
There we go. Look at that. So we always open with our segment called How Are You Hanging In There? So this is just our way to put it out there and say, we hope all of you are staying safe, you're staying engaged, and we're going to get through this. You know, it's going to be the next 3-6 months are going to be challenging, just like the previous 8 have been. But you know what? Let's just stay connected. And doing this show, not only locally, but across the country, is just our little way of giving back to give you a little something to educate and inspire. And also, as Reza and I do, and Maryam, we like to keep this a little bit light. I know Kevin's going to bring some of that energy here today also with that. So yeah. Hope everybody's hanging in there, and stay safe, be kind to each other, be kind to yourself. So Startup Vancouver, best way to connect with us is through social media. We're very active there, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and also our LinkedIn community page there. So all the events that we have and the others that we also either co-present or just share the love, and we love to promote across Canada. You'll find all of those there through our streams. And also with our YouTube channel that's been up and running for the last couple of months. So every recording of every episode we've done so far, and Reza, episode 33, can't believe it, buddy, we made it to 33. We put them there. So if you like this one so much, you want to see it again, or if you want to see these other, oh gosh, over 100 entrepreneurs and influencers in the innovation space, to go back and see these engaging stories there. We've got a great back catalog there. Hey, while you're there, why don't you subscribe to the channel too? Show us a little bit of love there also. So I want to hand it over now for a minute here to Kevin, so he can tell us a little bit about Platform Calgary and all the good things that you're doing there. So Kevin, why don't you take it away for a minute there, my friend?
Great, happy to. Thanks, Colin. Yeah, so Platform Calgary, we are a civic organization, a community builder, a not-for-profit here in Calgary, Alberta. We've actually been around since 1981, and we've had kind of 3 main stakeholders that came together to create the organization: the City of Calgary, the Chamber of Commerce, and the University of Calgary. So we've had many different names over the years, and the organization has shifted its focus. But for about the last 2.5 years, Platform Calgary, as we know it today, has really existed. And what we're trying to do is create a platform for shared prosperity for all Calgarians, increasing diversity in thinking, experiences, cultures, and industry, and really doing that around our goal of driving innovation here in the community. So we kind of focus on a few different areas. One is really around global connectedness and entrepreneur training, advice, mentorship. We also do some events, and really it's all about making connections within the community and within that broader global community for startups here in Calgary. We're working as a city building organization around helping to engage the larger, more established industries, helping them to embrace open innovation and get engaged with startups, and really trying to create this citywide culture of innovation that we and a number of our sister organizations here in Calgary are trying to work on. We have a building that's going to be opening up next year. It's been delayed a little bit due to COVID, but the Platform Innovation Center is going to be open. It's 50,000 square feet of community space dedicated to the entrepreneurs, investors, and everybody who's helping to build this thriving industry here in Calgary. That's probably it for me for now. If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, or I can answer them offline as well.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for that intro there, Kevin. And what I love about what you do, and when I was in Calgary this time last year as part of Startup Canada, and I had a chance to see the innovation center that was being built at the time. And I have to say, I am jealous. I wish Vancouver had something like you are building there. But what I love about what you're doing, just like the kind of the core value that we embrace, is collaboration, not competition. And I love the fact that we are able to combine our forces, not only today here in this hour, but as we have done in the past. And I'm really excited about collaborating even more between Vancouver and Calgary in the future. And we're just getting started here, my friend.
Absolutely.
So as Kevin just mentioned there, this is an interactive and collaborative show. So we want to engage our attendees both on Zoom here, so down in chat, also live on Facebook there, so within the comments there. If you have any questions after we finish up our 10-minute or so conversation with our guests here, please put something out there, because we will be happy to ask your question on your behalf, or we can even open up the mic if you want to ask it yourself. I just wanted to quickly mention that we are very, very proud to have is our charity partner, Jack.org. And Jack.org is a Canadian nonprofit that is an advocacy group for youth mental health awareness that starts at the grassroots level, that empowers young people as ambassadors to promote awareness and remove that stigma that surrounds mental health and anxiety, depression, and even sadly suicide. So far we've managed to raise over $600 with them. That keeps on rolling. Sorry, Reza, my friend, I'm not going to sing today. We didn't get any donations today, and that's completely okay. You know what? I don't give away this voice, all this for free. So we'll have to hold on to that for next week, unless someone in the next hour makes a donation, and then I can also pivot and sing at the end of the show. So just very quickly, so with Shanika and Bessie and what she's doing in the entrepreneurship space, Reza's going to talk to her at the end of the show, as I mentioned. In the middle here, of course, we're going to have Kevin is going to have a conversation with Derrick with regards to Ontopical. And I am now going to open the show with a conversation with Carrie about all the interesting things that she and her team is doing with PwrSwitch. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen there, and everybody on there for a second. Oh, I even see we've got Maryam in the background. Even though she's not feeling that well, she's here in spirit, and that makes me happy to see. So, hey, Carrie, pleasure to meet you for the first time, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's awesome to be here, and I'm thrilled to have been invited.
Well, thank you for making the time. And I'm going to open it here. I've had a look at your LinkedIn bio. Very interesting stuff. I see that you've got your formal education and a bachelor's degree in arts and in writing. You have a writing background. So I'd like to hear, to start off with PwrSwitch, what your why is. I'm taking it the fact that you take writing very seriously. Words matter. So being able to track those seems to be a natural ingredient that goes into your why to create PwrSwitch. So rather than me trying to figure it out, why don't you tell us what PwrSwitch is and why you do it?
So you might think that's the why from looking at my LinkedIn bio. However, my why, and my story is somewhat well known here in Calgary, but about 6 years ago now, I went through a very high conflict divorce. And one of the kind of characteristics of that sort of situation is a very high volume of text, email, and chat communications that you are obligated to document for legal purposes. And it's very, very challenging to keep up with. And sort of rules of evidence dictate that you need all the context, meaning you need months or years of all of that communication. And after I had not an awesome legal outcome, I asked the question, what would make a difference for me? And I just thought, because the status quo still, and this is true globally, by the way, the status quo around mobile evidence is screenshots. And they tend to be kind of poorly captured, maybe no time and date stamp, that kind of thing, no context. They tend to be cherry picked because you're just kind of taking what you think you need, and they're not searchable. So it's a bit of a nightmare for legal counsel, and it's a bit of a nightmare for clients. And remarkably, this is, like I said, a global problem that nobody has tried to solve. So in asking the question, what would make a difference for me, I just thought, what if all this documenting was automated? And that's what PwrSwitch does. We automate the collection of text, email, and phone logs to start, and we'll have additional channels, as I refer to them, of capture. So WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger will come on eventually. And they're aggregated into a single sequential searchable doc. That's your foundation of evidence.
Got it, got it. So obviously you suffered this personal pain point here as part of your motivation. It sounds like if you've got a writing background or a Bachelor in Arts, and myself, I have a degree in architecture, so we come from more from that how does it make you feel type of background rather than a technical background. So
oh my God.
How did you, I know I had to find people that were then the technical co-founders. How did you then take this from an idea or a pain point, then that first step or first series of steps to actually realize there was a business background and a revenue background for this? And how did you then take those first steps as far as then making this into a tangible piece of software for a service then with the technical team? So I'm curious about those first steps of how you got from idea to actually getting a product and minimum viable product in market.
Well, for sure, I am, it is not uncommon for me to be the least technical person in a room. And I take a very art of war approach to this. And I think I have our team actually convinced also that my utter and complete lack of technical capability is actually our superpower, because I represent the average user. And it really has become the task for our dev team. It's like, if Carrie can't figure it out, forget about it. So I've had to overcome a lot of, I would say, insecurity about the fact that I really come from more of an art background than a technical one. That said, just to sort of loop Kevin into this conversation a bit, or platform rather, prior to being platform, it was Calgary, what is it? CTI, what was it, Kevin?
Calgary Technologies, Inc.
Yes. And so I had this idea, and I called there and I'm like, I have this idea. And they're like, we totally get this. This is an awesome idea. What you need to do is come and validate it. And so CTI and now Platform run a series of classes for people who have a great idea, where they can do a bit of a deep dive and sort of test the business proposition. Is this a problem? Is it a problem that is worth solving? Is it a problem that people would pay for? And I went through that process, and it turns out that yes, it's
They help
a problem
they help you
want to
validate
solve.
that. Got it. So to keep showing the love for Platform Calgary here, how long have you been involved with that program, and what are they helping you with now? Kind of now that you're that next step, you're in market, and I'm assuming you have recurring revenue. You have growth. It sounds like it's a two-sided marketplace, and it sounds like both for consumers but also for for the law profession also. So how are they helping you now take your, let's call you an early growth company or a scale up company to the next level?
Yeah, we're definitely early stage. So our tech is just over a year old, and it's wildly complex. And so that has been, I would say, that slowed down our growth. With that, but yes, we are in market, and it is two-sided. It's for counsel and for consumers. So Kevin actually still offers coaching through Platform to my co-founder and I. And so he's really a great resource when we are stuck, which is not unoften, if that's a word, said the writer. Yeah.
I love that. Well said. Even if it's not grammatically correct, someone will have to pull up a thesaurus on that or a dictionary to see if that actually.
Oh no, I can tell you it's not a word, but it might be now.
It is now. There you go. There we go. So one thing we always do in the show is to kind of pull this back on a personal level and also with your team and also about the product and service you're bringing to market. How has COVID affected you personally and your team? I'd like to hear the size of your team and how that's affected the way that you're working. And also what opportunities are you seeing now with your business? I would think, I'm making an assumption again that, everything being remote and distance, that this would be an opportunity for you, for people to engage with your platform even more than let's say traditionally we would do pre-COVID. So tell us a bit about that. How are you doing? How's your team doing? And what are you, and tell us what changes you've made or shifts you've made with the product, during COVID.
So the team, like we're a core of 3, and then our dev are all contracted, although they're vested partners, and there's a team of 7 there. And so we have been working all through COVID, fortunately. Personally, for both my co-founder and I, although maybe worse for me because my children are young, but single parent, 2 young kids. And so that you talk about what keeps me up at night. It's like, it's been enormously challenging. Trying to co-parent and run a business at the same time. And when lockdown first happened, like through March to sort of June and through the summer, that was a nightmare. I have twin 9-year-olds, and so they're not at the self-directed learning part of their life. And kind of about 4 or 5 weeks in, people would be like, how's it going? And I'm like, you know what? It's amazing. And they're like, really? And I'm like, now that I've totally given up, things are much better.
Surrendered. Let it wash over you, right?
It was way too hard because I don't have a co-parent, really. And so it's like, it was a lot of togetherness, A, and B, it's like trying to do like 3-4 hours a day of kind of homeschool. And I never wanted to be a teacher. And trying to ensure that the business continued to thrive and grow. That was just really a challenge. So that's sort of gone away. My kids are back in school, although I have occasional PTSD when they have a runny nose or something one day. But, and my co-founder, likewise, Beth Thompson, she's also a single parent to a teenage girl. So I'm not sure that's easier than 2 9-year-olds. So like, that's been a challenge. And obviously we're all working remotely. We don't see each other in person a whole bunch, but we see each other a lot this way. In terms of opportunity, you are right in that times of stress and uncertainty tend to cause an increase in bad behavior, shall we say, and particularly with everybody being remote. And one of our kind of core audiences are people in the family law space. And so with kids, maybe their parenting agreements kind of went sideways because of COVID or whatever. we actually saw an uptick in usage, and we sort of, as a recognizing that the difficulty and how our tool helps, that we offered it for free, and we sort of still continue to, on iPhone particularly. So yeah, I don't want to say it's been good for us, but I guess I'm saying it's been good for us.
Right. Well, I have dozens of more questions, but I have to be respectful of time here. So I did want to open it up to Reza, and I believe Maryam's also in chat, quite active there too. Or if we have any questions from our audience here, or even from Kevin, if anybody wants to jump in for a couple minutes here and ask Carrie any questions here. So Reza, I'll start with you. Do we have anything in chat, or do you have anything?
We don't have anything in chat. What I'm super interested in what you guys are doing, Carrie, especially when you mentioned about screenshots. I think it's super valuable for future AI models to be able to search through images and find text through images, as well as voice. Imagine like if you have an hour show on YouTube, instead of watching it, search the keywords that you want to watch, and then it just plays the 36 minutes and whatever seconds that word was said. So if you guys make a lot of progress in that, and I didn't catch whether you guys are doing all of that yet or not, but at the beginning you mentioned how hard it is to go through all those screenshots and find the data you want. I think that's remarkable what you guys are working on.
Yeah, well, we know in a legal context, let's just say, but there are many different legal contexts that PwrSwitch works for, like if it's civil or insurance or criminal or virtually anything that, like workplace, anything that falls under civil law generally. That what we know in the family space is just to have a lawyer organize your mobile evidence on an average file, not even a difficult one, costs a person approximately $7,500 per, and that's on a moderate file. So the savings for individuals is extreme, but then on the council side, they also don't, we know again, it takes about 30 hours, again as average, for your paralegal or your legal assistant to do that. And it's low value work. And it's not, there's a move toward client-centered practice.
Now, question for you, do you see AI being able to do that instead of person?
It's on our roadmap, Reza, and is to have AI not just maybe alert people, because you don't always know that you're unsafe if you've been living inside that situation. So there's that piece for the AI, but also just to help people put their arguments together, or to help counsel put arguments together so that you could, for example, see patterns of behavior over time. There's massive value in that for lawyers as well as individuals. Awesome. So yeah, definitely on our radar.
Awesome. Nice, good stuff. Well, thank you for that, Carrie. Enjoyed learning about what you're doing with PwrSwitch. I have sent many more questions, but we got to keep things rolling here now. And I do want to hand it over to Kevin, who is now going to have a conversation with Derrick. Kevin, take it away.
Okay, so wait, am I good cop or bad cop? I can't remember.
Oh, good cop.
What did we talk about earlier?
There we go.
Oh, okay, good cop. Okay. Thanks, Colin, and thanks, Carrie, for sharing some of your story there. Yeah, so Derrick, excited to have a chance to talk with you a bit here today. We've known each other for a few years now, kind of worked together off and on through a few different programs. So I know a little bit about your origin story and kind of how you got started on this path with your startup. But I think it'd be a great story to share with the audience here. So can you tell us your origin story and how you got started with Ontopical?
Yeah, sure. It's an interesting story, and like many startups, there's a couple pivots along the way. So I guess at the base of the story, I'm an engineer, and I had spent about 20 years working in engineering consulting. Ultimately, I ended up with my own engineering firm, and which I sold back in 2014 to an Austrian company. And throughout my career, one thing that always stood out to me was, I guess, based on my modest farm upbringing, waste always jumped out at me. So as I entered into left family farm, went into the workforce after graduating from university, the amount of rework that was being done, the reinvention of the wheel, the amount of time spent looking for information within an enterprise even always caught my attention. So through that, I guess, as I moved into my my own engineering company, I also had really focused on one industry, being oil and gas, and I knew there was opportunities in other industries, specifically the public sector, with entities like local government organizations, but really had no way, other than watching for bids to come out on sort of Merck's or bid platforms, had no way of knowing where the opportunities were, getting a heads up that they were coming, building relationships, and putting my business in a good position to win that work. So we entered, when we started the company, we actually had an initial idea, which is to build a knowledge platform for local government administrators to help them benefit from best practices amongst themselves. And we are actually doing quite well with that idea. And we're seeing month over month growth up until March of this year. And then COVID hit. And I guess what we learned at that time is that one, local government organizations are not really set up to work remotely. So there was like a 2-month period in there where they were buying laptops and trying to figure out policies for working from home. And really they were unapproachable. During that time, we were assessing really what was going, what their world was going to look like as we came out of this. And specifically, we were focusing on the US market at that time, and realizing that local government revenues are generally tied into sales taxes, not property taxes like Canada, and they're going to have a rough go. So at that point, we made a pivot. Actually, I should say at that point, we went back and relived our early days and did customer discovery things we had learned through Platform. One of our very first programs we did with Platform back when it was CTI in Calgary here was discovery. So as a CEO, I had to kind of take the company, set them down and saying, hey, I know we're making good progress, but we're heading towards a cliff, and I have to divert us away from the cliff. So we went back into customer discovery. We interviewed, and Kevin, you'll like this number, I think we interviewed almost 150 private sector companies, right? So we took a team of 4, we split 150 contacts 4 ways, and we said, next 2 weeks, all you're doing is picking up the phone and calling, asking for a meeting, asking what their biggest problems are, ask them how they're solving those problems. We came out of that with a pivot and a really significant opportunity. So I guess you asked what my origin story is. I'm telling you all the whole story right to today. But yeah, as of today, in the course of 3 months, because of what we learned through the discovery program and the validation programming that we went through, and because of Junction, which we were also part of, we very efficiently did customer discovery. We have a clear path to validation. We currently have 22 enterprise customers starting to pilot with us, and a clear path to revenue. So that's kind of where we sit today. As we have also, I should mention, also just come out of a Bay Area UC Berkeley accelerator. And there's interesting stories there around also around running or being in an accelerator during COVID. And that story starts with me actually being in Berkeley. I had a pen in my hand about to sign a lease to get an apartment down in Berkeley, California for a year. My phone rang, and it was my wife saying, you know, they're talking about closing borders. You may not want to sign that lease. And so I flew home, and a few days later, borders were closed. So we have just gone through an accelerator. They did a great job of doing it virtually. And of course, that was all key to our pivot that we've recently done.
Talk about things that would keep you up at night. Had you signed that lease?
Well, as a startup, for those that don't know, resources are always very tight. And as you can imagine, even a 1-bedroom apartment in the San Francisco area is not cheap. So, and obviously doing things like subletting and stuff down there right now would be very difficult. The stories are that San Francisco is like a ghost town right now. So yeah, definitely glad I didn't sign that lease.
Wow. Well, I mean, you touched on a few of the other questions that I had kind of around how COVID has impacted your business. But, you know, I'm curious from a team perspective, you kind of touched on this. You mentioned going back and kind of resetting things and doing discovery again. You know, how has it been keeping your team motivated and safe and thriving during these crazy 8 months that we've been through?
Yeah, it's not easy. I would say it's not all bad. Like, honestly, we've brought on some very talented resources in other cities that if COVID hadn't happened, I don't know if we would have been open to having a virtual workforce. So in some ways it's great because it kind of forced us to look at all of our options. The real tough part that I've personally struggled with is establishing vision, culture, values, communicating that through the organization. You know, that's really tough, especially when, you know, I would say probably over half of our team, we're 11, half of our team I've never met in person. And that's tough, right? So it's tough to get to know really what employees are about, what drives them in that environment. So I would say that's probably been one of the more challenging aspects is establishing that and solidifying it and getting it communicated clearly across the organization. Yeah,
that remote, I think that's a new sort of a new normal for a lot of teams, right? Having team members now that you've never actually worked with face to face. It's kind of a new trend that we're hearing a lot more of. I know companies prior to COVID, some of them were embracing that fully distributed workforce, but I think now we're seeing it more and more. And you're definitely right that the challenges that come with that is how do you really get to know people on a personal level, right? When you're building that small team and that culture. So I asked you about your team. How are you staying motivated and sane through these last 8 months?
Yeah, you know, there's good days and bad days. I think everyone who's an entrepreneur sees that. I also have had some challenges with family. So again, working in my home with my kids, I do have one child who's struggling a bit with some stuff, and COVID probably aggravated some of that. So I guess the good thing is I'm here, but I see that it is impacting the family quite a bit. I think for us, what I really kind of latch on to that keeps me going is the pivot and the traction and the market pull that we're seeing as a result of that. And quite honestly, similar to what Carrie said, we probably are stronger because of COVID. So the information that we're providing to private sector customers now, there's not a lot of ways to get that information. So, you know, in the legacy in the old world, I guess people used to go sit in council meetings and committee meetings and listen to what was being said. And that just doesn't really happen anymore. Government relations firms were having coffee or lunch with counselors to kind of get insights into what was really happening within local government organizations. So, you know, for us, I think for me, what really keeps me going is the pivot, the traction, and the fact that the opportunity that's in front of us is partially COVID induced, if you will. And I feel urgency around that, and want to make sure that you know I motivate our team to get the most out of the opportunity that's in front of us at the moment.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear you've got some renewed focus given the pivot. And I thought for sure you'd talk about something like, driving fast vehicles or downhill mountain biking or something that's a big stress reliever, but.
Well, I can share stories about that, but it involves a broken hand this summer and a few other things. So, yeah. But
wait, is that another broken hand?
Yeah.
Oh no, because you had broken a leg.
Yeah, a leg and a hand now, and a few other things. But yeah, no, I do use for me the big, like honestly for me, because my stress reliefs are, yes, racing cars. I do autocross and mountain biking. Those are two of my big things. And COVID really never impacted those. They even the auto events, they were shut down for about a month, but then they opened up and we all social distance and no one did ride-alongs and we wore masks during safety meetings. And the trails, like anyone who's tried to buy mountain bike parts or mountain bikes or bikes this summer knows that everyone's doing it. So so my world is kind of the outdoors, and none of that was really impacted by COVID anyway. So yeah, I kept all that going and that keeps me sane.
Excellent. How are we doing for time, Colin? Do we want to open it up for Q&A? I saw there were some questions coming in.
Thanks for that. Hey, Reza, I think you saw a couple of questions.
I'm gonna jump in. Josiah is asking, what are some challenges you faced, not in the defining of your vision and culture, but in the adoption of that vision and culture throughout your team? That's for Derrick.
Yeah, I think in the adaption, it's tough when you have a team moving in a direction for like 2 years. And there's some momentum there. Truthfully, we were previously called Box of Docs and had that public sector facing product. It is a challenge, especially in a virtual environment where you can't get into a room, crack some beers, have some hugs and say, look, it's time for a change. To do that virtually is difficult. I think the truth is that when it really came down to it, I think the team knew at their heart that something did have to change. But regardless of defining vision and value, I think getting an entire team who's been working on something for that length of time to change direction, and not only change direction, but to be excited about the change in direction. That honestly took a little bit of strategy and planning. That wasn't just an ad hoc meeting.
We have one more question from Maryam. She's asking, how did you define your company's culture? Where did you get inspiration from?
To be honest, we're still working on it. Yeah, I think I define, I think of culture in terms of values that are demonstrated in behaviors. That's how I think of culture. And the challenging part is that you're not seeing all the behaviors, and the company is not seeing everything that I do. It's difficult for a leader to demonstrate behaviors that you want to see across the company. So, we recently actually, I put up my hand and asked for help because it is very tough to do. And what I've decided to do is to bring in a resource to walk our leadership team through that, to make sure that we get it right. Because like many founders, I have so many things going on that it's probably not going to get done right if I just try and read a book or watch some YouTube videos and try and do it. So I want to bring in someone to make it a process, make sure everyone's engaged in the process and everyone contributes and feels at the end of it that they actively, that the values and the culture and the behaviors in the company, that they had an active involvement in defining all that.
Thank you for sharing your story. The vulnerability there is very inspiring by itself. Thank you.
It really is. And I love the story, the fact you and your team, as they say, got out of the building there, Derrick, and did that customer discovery. 150. Wow. I thought I was pretty good at doing 30 or 40, but wow, you really crushed it on that. And that's not easy to do because, of course, we've already created this thing and we've created this baby, and we don't want anybody to tell us our baby's ugly or our baby, people don't want to buy our baby. That's a wrong analogy, but you know what I'm saying there. Shouldn't be selling babies. Let's reinforce, I do not endorse selling babies, but you know what I mean there. That you don't want people to tell you that baby's ugly. So the fact you got out there, asked questions, and listened, and that's part of that empathy piece. People talks about empathy, but you actually then initiated empathy through asking those questions. And sounds like, Kevin, it's one of the things that you've done is repeating the importance and the value of customer discovery, but a lot of people don't do it because it is a lot of work and it's not sexy work, but that sounds like completely redefined your business and it's propelled you
And Colin,
forward.
let's highlight that because not a lot of entrepreneurs do interview their customers, their partners, whatever that might be. They're always distant and they send surveys and they're like, nobody likes surveys. I got inspired by somebody who I see them as a mentor. This person told me you have to interview at least a couple of the customers every week. And that's in my mantra, like every week, jump on a Zoom call. And they love it. The customer is like, I'm heard. And the founder actually spends time to listen to me. It's the best thing that can happen to any business. And many of my decisions come directly from my customers.
Yeah, and I would say, if I can add to that, like customer discovery really helps you define where to take your product and your company. But our 20 plus pilot customers now are all a result of discovery calls.
Nice.
Right. So it's amazing. So out of those 150, we have a solid 22 enterprise customers saying, when you're ready, let us know, we want to pilot.
Nice.
So these are relationships that started with simple questions, no pressure.
Nice.
And yeah, so just keep that in mind when you're hesitating to make those calls, and the calls become fun. So
Yeah.
Yes, the first few calls are very difficult. There's a lot of great people out there willing to help you, wanting to tell their stories. You just have to reach out and ask.
Yeah, I was going to say, the more you do it, the easier it becomes, for sure, right?
It's like a muscle, right? You just gotta get your reps in there and keep going there and improve. So, hey, I want to thank Derrick and Kevin. Thank you for that conversation. What I love now about the conversation that Shanika and Reza are going to have, the fact we have such a diverse spectrum of entrepreneurship from the greater Calgary area as part of Platform Calgary. So I'm really excited for this next conversation. And Reza, my friend, I'm going to hand it over to you for you to have a chat with.
And to add to
Shanika.
that, Colin, I love Calgary, so this is an exciting show to begin with, and there's a lot of entrepreneurial spirit in Calgary. Shanika, thank you for joining us today on the show. Tell us a little bit about how you started. So you're the founder of Bessie. It's a subscription box for meat and fish, I believe. Tell us how you got into that. What were you doing before then? What was the inspiration? How did it all start?
My, origin story is not that typical. So my co-founders and I are actually friends from university. And if you had told me, 6 years ago, I'd be building a business with them, I would have told you were lying or laughed. But I saw my co-founder, Spencer, actually quit his really great job at IBM. And he started sending everyone, myself included, surveys just asking about food. And I was at this really interesting point in my career where I'd just gotten laid off, had left my part-time gig as well, and just didn't know what I wanted to do. And was kind of spinning my wheels, but taking the time to figure out what I wanted. And when I saw Spencer asking all these questions, I asked him to go for a beer. And alternatively, he told me to come to the office and pitched me the entire company, or what was Bessie at the time. It's changed a lot in the last year and a bit. And said, oh, by the way, I'm selling next week and I don't have any of these things in place. And I initially thought, okay, I will come on freelancing because I have a few other clients I need to support. But the switch happened when I actually met one of the farms, our first partnered farm, and really got to talk to them in person, which feels like eons ago now, about the problem and what we were trying to solve for them. And from that meeting on, I was like, okay, I'm in full time, and it's been myself, him, and Alex ever since.
Nice. Did entrepreneurship, first of all, did you have prior background in entrepreneurship in terms of like, family or, dad? Okay. So was it interesting to you? Was it challenging? How did you find it?
I love a good challenge, but for me, with my previous job, I managed marketing and communications at the Calgary Drop-In Center, so supporting the homelessness sector in the city, and then also ran a nonprofit film festival, which showed socially conscious documentaries, and I worked in the arts. So I've always tried to sort of walk the walk. I want to create change in my city, and meeting a farmer, and they're truly the backbone of our province. That's what clicked for me. Did I ever think I was going to become an entrepreneur? No. For me, I saw someone and figured that no one's helping them. How can I be that person? And now it's been a year and a half of
And
that.
they say entrepreneurs are usually the creative minds. So that creativity art probably is shining now, especially through marketing for Bessie. And I see your website is beautiful. I'm sure you had a lot to do with that. Tell us about Bessie. How what's the competitive advantage? What should people know about your business?
Yeah, of course. So as Reza did a great job of explaining, we are a meat delivery service. We work with local farmers and fishermen. For the last year and a half, we've been doing direct to consumers, so directly to people's front doors within Calgary. Over the last few months, we opened in Edmonton as well. But things are shifting just as they do. We are in the middle of the beginning stages of a pre-seed raise. Because we have a great opportunity. One of our partnered farms came up to us and said, "You're doing a great job. All the software and tech that you're building, we want it for us." So now we're going to be venturing into the B2B SaaS space. So yeah.
Interesting. So there's a big trend all over the place in terms of subscription boxes for food, and especially meat, from farmers to, direct to consumer type of thing. I've seen a few other ones in Quebec, in Vancouver. It seems to me that the key competitive advantages that a company needs to build is the relationships with the farmer, who has the best meat for the best price and can deliver it faster, and the other is the customer acquisition. How are you guys handling those two?
Great question. We've been very lucky when it's come to farmers. I'm going to be honest, though, the first farm that we worked with, we no longer work with. It just wasn't the right alignment. And you figure that out as you build a company. But Alberta's filled with amazing farmers, right? Like I said, they're the backbone of our province. So we've had every farm under the sun reach out to us, but then it's on us to have the due diligence to go visit and really see if it's the right alignment. On the customer acquisition, you're right. We talk about it all the time. Online grocery is not that profitable, right? The margins get blown out of the water very quickly when you're trying to acquire a customer off a Facebook ad. But what we focus on is really our customer experience. So if you place an order with us, everything's managed through an SMS texting app. You'll get a text message right to your phone, sorting out your delivery date. It's a small touch, but it's something that immediately feels more personal than an email. And that small piece has led to so many conversations. So our customers will text us and ask for recipes, and we can quickly cache those things and it could be a churn, but since you're engaging in that conversation with them constantly, they feel like they're part of the brand. And one thing that we did in Calgary, actually, I'm not going to say we, I headed it, is the first sort of batch of subscribers that we had, I still go to them for everything, tying to Derrick and customer discovery. I have 4 emails from them right now, and they're really a part of getting the word of mouth out there, but really keeping that conversation around the brand and getting them involved and making them feel like they're a part of every step of it has really helped lower that price of acquisition, because we're not just buying a bunch of people.
It's crazy how fundamental, or how valuable, or not valuable, how crucial it is to have those loyal fan base of your company, because they are the ones that, put the words out there and help you grow. So in terms of growing to other parts of Canada, are you guys planning to do that? And how can you keep that competitive advantage, you know, because once you start having customers from other provinces, then it becomes, you know, the logistics, shipping, customer acquisition, all that stuff plays. Is this a model that you can only keep it in the, you know, your hometown or your province, or can you actually scale it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things that we do that's a little bit different than a lot of our competitors is we have fulfillment centers in the cities we're in, which cuts down on the biggest expense, which happens to be shipping. A lot of companies that do what we do are shipping with FedEx and dry ice, and then that costs so much money. So for example, here in Edmonton, we have like 300 square feet that we're renting. Our operations are quite lean. In Calgary, it's a little bit bigger. But yes, I guess the short answer is we'd love to go across the country. The next step for us, or the next province, would be British Columbia. Obviously, being closer to a fish source would be ideal for us to cut down on some costs and get us healthier margins. But that is the goal. But we will keep the fulfillment centers being within certain cities.
Nice. Looking forward to that. Shanika, you've been perhaps wearing multiple hats as an entrepreneur over the past year and a half. What's the favorite hat?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Believe it or not, very simply, I like writing. I come from a communications background, so any opportunity I get to write anything, whether it's a pitch deck that one of my co-founders is presenting, or even just an email to our customers, those are things that I love doing.
So if you look at the website, the copy is by you?
Yeah, 100% by me.
Nice.
I also
That's
love
awesome.
people, you know, and I love talking to our customers.
That's awesome. That's
Get on
awesome.
with them, and I
What's the least favorite hat that you sometimes have to wear?
Oh my gosh. Anything related to process and like writing it down, which obviously I know I need because we're scaling our team and things are growing and it can't just live in my head, but there's nothing worse than having to actually fill out a spreadsheet or put everything in.
I'm not a big fan of that either.
I'm not either.
I feel you. I feel you.
Founders that can do those things.
Well, I wish we had more time, but I want to know, to wrap it up, what keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night? I think this is a challenge that all entrepreneurs have, but working in the business. So I'm in Edmonton right now to manage operations for deliveries that are going out today, while working on the business. Like I said, we're at the beginning stages of a pre-seed raise, building out a second arm of our company, and really trying to balance being strategic and doing all the other things you need to do.
Nice. Awesome. I'll let everybody else jump in and chime at the conversation and ask questions.
Yeah, I wanted Kevin to jump in here for a second, but I did want to just reinforce for everybody that's out there watching today as entrepreneurs or considering entrepreneurship. I hear this all the time. Oh, I don't have a tech background, or I've even heard, I don't have an app. It's like, that has nothing to do with entrepreneurship. The fact I love with Carrie, Shanika, both of you come from a human-centric design approach. You both come from an arts background. Derrick, a lot of the things that you've talked about with customer discovery revolves around empathy and people. It has nothing to do with the technology. The technology is the enabler. So Kevin, I want you to jump in here perhaps and expand on that as far as kind of that call to action for entrepreneurs in the greater Calgary area, or people that are considering entrepreneurship. What criteria do you look for people then coming into onboard, even for those first conversations, not only where they physically live, but also what they're excited about in entrepreneurship?
Yeah, you know, I think I would just say that I'm so excited and happy to hear the recurring theme of like that customer-centric approach, right? Because whatever you're doing, whatever company you're trying to build, whether it's a marketplace, B2B, B2C, it all comes down to understanding your customer and the problems that they have and how you can solve that, right? So, you know, hearing that, and I think that's what I would put out there to any entrepreneurs or people who are thinking about getting into, you know, starting their own business, is that's where it all starts. And sometimes you're your own customer first, right? You experience that pain and then you want to change it. Sometimes it's through business. You learn something through spending, you know, 10, 15, 20 years in an industry, and you just keep seeing this problem over and over. And you're like, wow, someone should really fix this. I'm going to be that person. So it doesn't matter what problem it is that you find. In terms of engaging, I think the biggest thing I would say to anybody here in Calgary is just to reach out, engage with the community. platform, we have a lot of on-roads or on-ramps into all the good things that are happening here in Calgary and in Alberta. But there's a huge number of support organizations that are trying to help build and grow the community here. So reach out. There's a program for every stage, whether it's, as I like to say, if you slip and bang your head and come up with an idea for the next flux capacitor, there's a program that we can help you take action on that idea and move it forward. And Back to the Future fans will get that reference. And then other entrepreneurs, if you've been struggling and it's a couple of years and you've been building, but you want to engage and try to see what other support there is for you, again, there's other programs that are targeted for people who are a little bit later on. So the key is just engage.
Yeah. Kevin, I want to add a comment on what you said about being a customer centric and being focused on customers. I see a lot of founders who focus a lot on investors, and you know how when you have an investor and there's a conversation, you jump on the email, you're so quick to, respond to that investor and make sure they're getting the deck and you're available, you clear your calendar. I wish people did that for their customers because they are paying the bills and they don't want your equity.
The best investor in your startup are your customers, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, that road to traction and getting revenue coming in the door is the best thing that you can do for your company. Everything else kind of flows from that. So I totally agree with you. Make that commitment for your customers, and the investors will see it.
Love that. Love that. Those are that nugget of wisdom is perhaps one that we should end on here. Unless Reza, you or anybody else had any more questions for Shanika, I do want to give Kevin and Reza the opportunity to wrap up the show here.
We don't have a question, but we do have an advocate of Bessie. Vanessa on Facebook says, "Proud Bessie customer here." So we do have advocates here. But yeah, that's our show on Tuesday. I'll let Kevin to close today.
There we go, Kevin. So thanks again, Kevin, for joining us today, for helping put this together. And once again, as the water levels, the tide rises here in entrepreneurship across Canada and innovation, Calgary's a boat, Vancouver's a boat, we're rising together here. You always hear that cliche in the entrepreneurship space, but it is true. We are here to support all of our friends in Calgary and Alberta and across the country here, even though we're located here on the West Coast. And I have a feeling this is going to be a reoccurring thing, that this isn't the last time that we're going to be checking in with all of the vibrant and diverse entrepreneurs that Calgary and Alberta has to offer. So with that, as Reza said, Kevin, we'll give you the stage here, my friend, to end things today, to end the show, to sign things off.
Oh, thanks, Colin. Well, I would just like to say I look forward to doing many more collaborations between Calgary and Vancouver. I think we've got an ecosystem that is growing. We've got a lot of really amazing entrepreneurs building really cool things here. And so yeah, I'd love to see that collaboration continue. And I guess lastly, though, I would just like to thank Carrie, Derrick, and Shanika for taking some time out of their busy schedules, because I know one of the things that often keeps entrepreneurs up at night is the fact that there's not enough hours in the day to accomplish all the things that you're trying to accomplish. So really appreciate you guys taking an hour and sharing your stories. And I think really inspirational stories for people who are probably going through similar things as you are right now with their businesses. So thank you guys for sharing that and really being open and transparent about what's going on with your businesses.
Amazing. So good.
Thank you.
Well, on that, why don't we wrap up for the day? So everyone, thanks so much for joining us today, both on Zoom and on Facebook. Thank you again to our guests, to Reza, Maryam. Get well soon. We'll see you next week. And that's it for this week.
Every Tuesday, 12 o'clock. Don't forget, we take your lunch break with us. It's just an hour show with 3 amazing entrepreneurs.
Here we go. Good
Take
stuff.
care, guys.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.